Kia ora, I'm Ian Welsh. I'm a cybersecurity lecturer and I work within the School of Engineering and Computer Science that's based at Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington. I teach a first year course on cybersecurity, and what I'm going to talk about today is one of the hot topics that we normally cover within the course, and also hopefully give you a bit of an insight into where cybersecurity can actually take you. So the topic I'm going to talk about today is ransomware. Ransomware is basically a computer virus that gets onto your computer and it locks up all your files, and you're displayed with a ransom note. And it says basically that unless you pay the ransom, you're not going to get your files back. Now, this is a bit of a hot topic because we've seen recently at Waikato, at the Waikato DHB, that their system's been down for over 2 weeks now due to the infection of what's called the Zeppelin ransomware. And what this has done is it's frozen essentially all their access to their critical systems that include medical equipment, which has really bad effects upon individuals as well as the organization itself. One of the questions that we ask is, just us? Well, it turns out that it isn't. There's Conti ransomware, which is related to the Zeppelin, and it's also been crippling the Irish system at a much larger scale. And we've seen similar kinds of attacks all over the world, in the US, other parts of Europe, within Asia as well. And ransomware is basically a modern scourge upon businesses that are trying to do their work. How does it arise? Well, the way it gets into the system is through something called social engineering, which is where we trick a person into doing something that's not in their best interest. So, for example, this is just an example, somebody might receive an email. In this case, it's an invoice saying, there's an invoice, it's urgent, it needs to be paid, please open this file that's connected to this email that you received. When this file is opened, it actually installs a virus that goes on to do some pretty bad things. One of the first things it does is it starts copying the data, and it will make this data available on the dark web. That's a part of the web that's not indexed by search engines and is basically where hackers hang out. And the data will either be sold or will be displayed in order to embarrass the organization itself. The next thing that it will do is it will it will destroy all of the backups that are present. So basically the idea here is that it will get rid of all the copies of the files that you might switch back to if your proper ones are actually encrypted. And then it does the job of actually doing the encryption. It does this last because it's the noisiest part of the activity. It's the bit which actually people start to notice. So it tries to do it really quickly, and it does the equivalent of putting chains around the box that contains the data. It does this using cryptography. So there's a particular type of cryptography called AES that's used by some, and there's a special key that you have to have in order to get the data back. And that key is what the ransom is for. The other thing about ransomware is that all it needs to do is get onto one person's computer, and because all our computers within an organization tend to be highly interconnected, a bit like these balls in this diagram here, what it does is it finds ways to spread by stealing people's passwords, taking advantage of sending out other emails to other people, and various other ways. So this is one of the reasons it's actually very hard to counter and very hard to clean up with afterwards. This raises an ethical dilemma for businesses. They're given two choices really. One is that they read the note and they pay the ransom. So in this case, this is Conti, which is the one that is actually attacking the Irish system at the moment. And it says, you've got to use Tor, you buy some Bitcoins and pay your ransom, and that's it. And we'll unlock your data. Okay, so that's fine. But the problem is that you've now basically rewarded the attackers, and you're not even sure you'll really get the data back. But on the other hand, the alternative is basically starting again from scratch with your systems and rebuilding them. This is why it's taking so long. It's been taking over 2 weeks. And part of the reason for this is that should you bring the system back up and it's still infected, it will go and spread through the entire system again. So it's a mess. It's really difficult to deal with. Now, in order to prevent ransomware, you have to apply the 3 main principles of cybersecurity, which are basically understanding the people element, which is training people not to open these attachments or to behave in a more safe manner, just shown here, and to defeat this social engineering itself. The other is to deploy technologies. So often people think about cybersecurity, they think just about the technologies, but it's much more than that. It's actually understanding the people as well and how to use these together. And then there's processes. So the process that's going on at the Waikato DHB right now is most akin to an ambulance or a fire engine. It's trying to clean up after the mess. And so one of the things that we teach here is all about that, how you run these processes to recover after an accident, well, a disaster like this really. Finally, there are lots of jobs in this area. So the kind of people who would carry out these processes are security engineers who deploy the systems, blue teams who defend the systems, and red teams, penetration testers, who try and find the holes before the hackers do. So that's the end of the hot topic. I would love to see you on campus where you'll have the opportunity to learn about all these things and basically become one of the people who protects the internet from the bad guys.